Good morning, everybody. Today, I'd like to begin the session with a video by an award winning teacher. And this teacher is based in the US. Her name is Erin Grubel. And she was assigned the task as a 23, 24-year-old teacher to teach English in the government school in the Bronx area in Los Angeles city of USA. Now, Bronx area, as we might know, or I will just like to explain, is an area which where in very underprivileged and people from economically weaker section of the society live. It is primarily an African American dominated area, so there is a lot of drug abuse, drug trafficking, violence and crime against women, and otherwise also there are many incidents of domestic abuse, violence, gunfiring. There's a lot of gang lords, and basically everything that is considered as an evil in a civilized modern society exists and thrives in this area of slum dwellers. And Erin being a person of Caucasian descent, so she being a Gora, for her to make inroads with the students who were 14, 15 years of age. By this time, these youngsters were given into a lot of crime, had developed a habit for or become accustomed to violence and rowdiness and misbehavior and indulging in illegal activities. They were not very open to listening to her. First, she is of a different race. Second, she's teaching a subject which is English. So, English they all know because that's their language of communication. But then they speak an English which is not formally correct or which is not accepted as the correct form of communication. So, and they could not see any direct correlation in learning English with their employment or getting more money into their hands. Whereas studying vocational subjects, something like carpentry or mechanics or repairing a mobile phone, or not at that time repairing a mobile phone, repairing a car, and other such things really seemed to make sense to these youngsters because then they could pick up odd jobs and earn quick bucks and spend them on drugs or other things. So she faced a lot of backlash and opposition. But how did she overcome that? It is in the year 1996-97, and she worked with these students who went on to become exceptional change makers and successful people in the American society. There were advocates, barristers at law, there were white collar people like chartered accountants, people working in the creative fields like makeup artists, so on and so forth, that came from the ranks of these students themselves. So, how was she able to bring about this change? So, there is this small video about her journey, what were the challenges that she faced, how she overcame them, and how she's able to change so many lives, impress upon youngsters, adolescents who are rebellious adolescents, how she's able to accomplish that. Her story was so successful that she conducted a book tour because books are involved extensively in her methodology, in her pedagogy. So she conducted a book tour. They went out and visited her. She and her students went out and visited many schools within the US. A book she wrote on the entire journey and the process, which got converted into a movie, also Freedom Writers. So it is an amazing success story and a source of inspiration and also innovative ideas for teachers, I feel, who want to improve and bring about a change, actually make a change in the lives of the students that they touch. Now, similar to this story, before I play the video, I'd also like to share with you the story of Mrs. Swaroop Sampath Rawal. Now, she's married to Mr. Paresh Rawal, a famous character artist from Indian Bollywood movies. Mrs. Swaroop Sampath, if you'll remember, she came in the Doordarshan serial जो है जिंदगी with Shafi Namdar and two other people. And she was crowned as Miss India in 1986 or 84, something, or 82, around that time. And she decided to join movies. And when she got married to Mr. Paresh Rawal, She gave into the domesticated life, and then she had two sons, and she was continually engaged in bringing them up. And once she had the emptiness, she did not know what to do with her life. So she'd been teaching her sons, and before that, she was acting. So she decided to combine both these two passions, and she completed her master's degree from India. Then she continued to pursue a PhD in using theatrics and dramatics in incorporating, encouraging, and evoking life skills, essential life skills in students, and supporting the process of learning and mm, gaining success or more meaning and relatability in life from Cambridge University, UK. And then she started teaching in a government school in a village in a small district in Gujarat. And she was also shortlisted for the Global Teacher Award in 2019, and she was the runners up. So, what I want to share here with you is teachers like you. Yesterday, I shared about Mr. Ranjit Singh from Maharashtra. So, teachers like you have who have been left out of any options. They've literally been pushed against the walls, but not coercively or aggressively, but they've just been left out of options as to how to continue to educate, continue to fulfill their duty, and also to answer the greater calling of effectuating a change within the younger generation. People like you have come up with innovative ideas, and they have not shied away from applying whatever is available to them, whatever they know, whatever they feel will benefit the students, and that is what they can do the best. They have employed that, incorporated that, and accomplished learning for their students. So more than teaching, it is learning, which is important when we want to develop this kind of a mindset. So let me now here share the interview of Erin Gruvel. I'm sad to report that nobody has recorded Swaroop Sampath's interview, or her journey has not been formally catalogued or recorded in any annals of history for us to refer to. It was just an old interview that I came across, and that is how I know it, and that is why I'm relating it to you verbally. Had I got some video or some, some other kind of animation to show with you with Mrs. Sarup, about Mrs. Sarup Sampath, I would have been happier to show that, because there is no dearth of ideas, innovation, talent, and innovativeness in education and other fields in India. I do not need to cross borders to find that kind of inspiration. It is just that we do not record it as much as the Westerners or people across the border do. So please permit me to share this video, and bear in mind that there are many such teachers within India as well who are unsung heroes like you. So please let me know if the audio is also there. Otherwise, there's some kind of a setting that I need to change on Google Meet, for which I'll request for support from the KNIT FDP coordinator. Please.
There aren't many people who could inherit a classroom at the age of 20.
Is the audio there? Can you hear clearly?
Yes, ma'am. It is very clearly audible, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'll play the video now. Thank you.
3 high school students, most of whom didn't care a lick about their education, and transform it. These were students in East Los Angeles who had suffered through the worst that poverty, gangs, and violence mete out. And yet, our EDGE interviewee this month, through an extraordinary pedagogy, inspired her students. She sold them on the power of the pen above the knife. She got them to believe in themselves and synergize as a group. They raised money, traveling to Washington, D.C. and Europe. They wrote letters that became a best-selling book, and their story was turned into a Hollywood blockbuster. Most of us will never enter a classroom quite this hard, and yet we all know these dynamics. How do you keep a student turned off from learning and inspire them? How do you get a group of individuals to coalesce as a team? And how do you release the potential for leadership and great things that we sense inside? We welcome you to Erin Gruvel.
So Erin, thanks so much for spending time with us this afternoon.
Whenever you're with educators, it's such a blessing. So to have the opportunity to speak to leaders who inspire other leaders, I walk away feeling like I'm the student.
So tell us a little bit about how your story started.
So I am an ordinary teacher. I'm an English teacher, and I began my career in Long Beach, California at Woodrow Wilson High School. I had ninth graders who weren't excited about reading or writing or anything that comes with an English classroom. And luckily, we were able to take that feeling of being miserable and angry and apathetic and turn it into one of celebrating the written word and using the written word to change lives. And so that's what I do now is I help teachers and students find their voice through writing and through celebrating great authors. We did a lot of analyzing teenagers who wrote stories about very difficult and painful things. And as we've traveled the country, we've got a lot of students who have stories to tell as well. And so that's what we try to do is encourage them to put down a fist and pick up a pen.
So every teacher has the experience of walking into a classroom and being excited about teaching something, and that excitement is not returned by the student. How do you get them to wake up?
It's a great question. I think every day is different. You have to be very flexible and in the moment as a teacher. Expect the unexpected, that our students are perfectly imperfect, and there's those moments where you just feel like you're a failure. And I've learned to be in the moment and to rise above technology problems or bells and whistles that go off for kids who are having a bad day. For me, I work with urban kids, so there's a lot of other issues that were out of my control. Whether or not a kid ate breakfast that morning, whether or not the lights were turned off the night before, whether or not they had clean clothes in the last month, whether dad is up for parole. So for me, there was a lot of other circumstances that I didn't realize were part of my curriculum. Before they could open that book, before they could write that manifesto, I had to know who they were and what their story was.
You can imagine some of their stories will probably feel ashamed and might not want to tell them.
A lot of what I tried to do then, and I still try to do now, is to create an environment where kids feel safe and an egalitarian, inclusive environment where everyone has a voice and everyone has a say, and we all hear those stories that we don't judge people. And so for a lot of students who have felt shame, what they don't want is they don't want pity. They don't want handouts. They might need a handout. And so part of my classroom is just allowing my students to feel healthy and whole, and oftentimes heal some of those horrific things that happened outside of room 203, outside of the boundaries of the school. So create an environment where my students came and felt supported and felt listened to and felt that they mattered was really important.
So what are the tools that you use to do that? Is it the compassionate look on your face? Is it a touch? Is it a joke? Take us inside the room for a moment. How do you make a safe space, especially in the beginning?
I think you have to establish boundaries. My students had to know that this was a hate-free zone, that we're not going to stand for any kind of bullying. We're not going to stand for any kind of isms, racism, or sexism, or ageism, and that we had to be vigilant in the moment when those things happened. We learned specifically from Holocaust survivors that evil prevails when good people do nothing. So I really want to set that tone that each and every one of us have to not stand idly by. And if we hear something that's inappropriate, we have to say something. If we see something that's inappropriate, we have to do something. And I think I really had that lesson come to life for me personally when I actually took my students to a concentration camp in Poland, to Auschwitz. And I saw all these homes and all these communities beside the railroad tracks and beside the camps, and people did do nothing, and people did stand idly by and allow those cries to fall on deaf ears. So for me, it was really about setting boundaries and structure about this is a sacred space, and we're going to agree to disagree, and we're going to challenge each other, we're going to ask questions, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry, we're going to show emotion. But at the end of the day, this is a place of great compassion and great understanding and great hope. And another incredible anecdote I learned from this fabulous survivor from Auschwitz. She said, it's not just enough to tolerate me. I don't want that. I want people to get to the point where there's acceptance. So I had started my class with one of my goals was about tolerance, and I know no longer use that word. It's not enough. It's all about striving towards acceptance.
What would you say your strength as a teacher is, and what would you say your weakness has been that you had to work hard at?
I think I'll start with my weakness. I think my weakness is I'm a big thinker, and there's a lot of minutia that goes with being a teacher. And I didn't realize going in, being an English teacher, how many papers you have to grade and how all-consuming it is. It is overwhelming. And I didn't set great boundaries for me. I had great boundaries for my class, for my students, and this environment. And I took all of those stories home with me, and they became overwhelming. So I think my weakness was not knowing how to say no, and not knowing when to turn it off, not asking for help when I was overwhelmed. Initially, as a first-year teacher, I tried to do everything myself, and in retrospect, it's really foolish. So then I become very vulnerable and ask for help. And when you ask for help, you set yourself up for rejection. So I have to face rejection. But every once in a while, when someone says yes, and I'll help you, or I'll be a part of this journey, it's worth the ask. It's worth putting yourself out there. So I think those are my weaknesses. I hope that my strength is, as much as I love being a teacher, I love being a student more. So I can create an environment where everything's set up perfectly, and my students take over, and they're the teachers. And it's very Socratic and very student-centered. That's my strength, is watching the magic unfold. The world is a really chaotic place, and I've just learned you don't have to control the chaos. That sometimes in those moments of kids laughing and singing and being what would seem to the outside world as out of control, in those out of control moments, that's where the real beauty comes, and the real learning and the real lessons. So I just sprinkle the magic, and the kids take it from there.
Do you think any student can learn to dream big?
Absolutely. And I think that's the frustrating thing in 2014 to even have to have that question. Education can be very polarizing. It can be very, unfortunately, elitist at times. And I've experienced that when the Freedom Writers Diary came out. My students and I have been able to travel the entire country and see many different communities that are very similar and or different to where we came from. Schools are still segregated in 2014, even after Brown sport education. Students are still failing. People still pick on this profession. And I hope that we get to a point where we can get it right, where we don't have people who don't understand how powerful this profession is, having those unfunded mandates that don't work, and those things that come and go and demoralize our teachers and make them feel overwhelmed and then leave the profession. I believe in my heart that education is a calling, and that it is bigger than myself. And so when I am allowed to follow that calling, I believe that that's where the passion comes from, the enthusiasm. So I'm hopeful about our future, but I'm more hopeful about allowing a kid and a teacher to make that connection in the classroom.
How do you make that connection?
That's a great question. I've never thought about it that way. I think I just try to be in the moment and to be. I don't take me to Vegas. I have no poker face. So if I'm anxious, you're gonna know. If I'm terrified, you're gonna know. If I'm excited, you're gonna know. And when I was getting my teacher credential at the university, I remember a professor said, "Don't smile till Christmas, never show emotion, don't wear your heart in your sleeve," all these don'ts. And I walked in on day one, and I was like, I have to be who I am. So I think I live in a world of hyperbole, English teacher, so I like melodrama, I like hyperbole, I like adjectives, I like things that are expressive. And so I had to bring those elements to my classroom. But along with all of that also comes the flip side, like Pandora's box. When you open the box, a lot of bad stuff comes out, and at the bottom there's hope. But in my classroom, to get to that hope, I had experienced a lot of pain with my students. And that's where the empathy came from, and that's where the compassion came from. I wasn't prepared for it, and I didn't expect it. But when it happened, I wanted them to know that it was safe, and that it was okay, and they weren't going to be judged. And that through a classroom and through kids and teachers, things could and will get better. And I'm so thankful that they did. And that's what the beauty of education is. I think we all have kids who need us in somehow, some way. And we're just, as educators, lucky to be there for our kids, regardless of the color of their skin or economics or the kind of subject matter we teach. I think the beauty of our profession is that we are able to be there for another person.
Any last words of advice that you might have for the teacher who yearns to connect, who yearns to inspire, and who says, I just don't know if I have time, and it's kind of scary.
I think we can admit that it's scary. I think you walk in anticipating that. It is terrifying. It is terrifying to be in front of a group of teenagers. They can ask anything. They have the best BS detectors. So you can't be something you're not, because if you are, they'll call you out. And they should. I think that's one of the last bastions of being real. Like my students always would say, keep it real. And I think that's when you can be in an environment that's educational and keep it real. There's nothing better. I feel that education oftentimes is a very subjective science. So sometimes when we're too objective, we lose things in transition. And so as a reading teacher, it was all about interpretation, and it was all about bringing meaning. But there's different interpretations, there's different meaning. So for me, it was all about being flexible, not being too controlling, and not trying to take my opinions and reinforce them, allowing my students to come up with their own opinions and to follow that discourse and to follow that path. So I would think for all teachers, go in this profession if it is your passion. Go in this profession if it is your calling, and fight for it. It's a difficult profession, but I think it's the most noble and the most meaningful. And so I'm so proud to call myself a teacher, and so proud to be an educator. And I hope that those that call themselves teachers and educators feel that same pride each and every day.
Well, on behalf of the Gardner Carney Leadership Institute, and as you know, our focus is to build leadership in students, to teach the teachers to do this. And you're just a shining exemplar in our profession. So I just want to thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you. Spending the day with your colleagues was a gift. Amazing, brilliant folks who passionately believe in their schools and their kids. So I just take that and your incredible foundation with me. So thank you so much.
So that was the video. How do you have any thoughts about what Erin shared? Anything that you'd like to add to it? All right, so moving on, I will begin with today's presentation. And today we are going to, as Amandeep ma'am shared with us, I'm going to share with you what I have learned and what I have gathered across the various years that I have been engaging session as to how we can develop a good session plan, an effective session plan for an online session. So please allow me to share the screen, and while I open the PPT for all of you. I hope the slide is visible to all of you. I have started the slideshow. So I will begin from the beginning, and I will request you to please take this in, or this session in, by incorporating your own experiences and also following your own instinct as to what will work with your students, and modifying what I share here according to your requirements and according to the need of the situation. So of course, we all do this. We divide the syllabus into sessions. So whatever has to be covered is divided almost uniformly into different sessions. Please also keep into mind certain holidays, a long weekend, or something of that sort that might be coming up. So avoid scheduling sessions around the days where there is a likelihood of students taking an off, not turning up for sessions, something which is very important, because then one will waste time, or one will deliver that session more than once, because it is an important topic, and it might happen that many of the students end up missing that class. So portions to should easily be covered in 25 to 30 minutes for a session lasting up to 45 minutes. Because as I shared earlier, you should involve and engage the students in your session. So feedback is very important, and you should give it time. So rather than having 15 minutes or 20 minutes towards the end of the session, please break up these 15 minutes into 5, 7 minutes, 2 to 3 times within the session. This will allow some respite to the students, also from the dense and the condensed information that you're sharing with them, and also allow you a breather. And you can also do different activities with students to energize them. For example, what I like to do is I'll tell them, okay, follow my hands, and first we'll do small activity of rubbing the hands, and then I'll say, okay, now clap them. So these are, even people from the corporate sector who are engaged in online sessions with me, they also end up doing this. And then when I say, do as I say, so take your hands and put a thumbs up sign. Then I say, take your hands and interlock your hands. Then take your hands and make a too good sign. Then take your right hand and put it on your cheek. And then I put it on my chin, and the cheek is here. Some people follow me verbally, some people are looking into the video. We all have videos on, and then we have a good laugh as to who's heard me and who's seen me and done something differently. So these are kind of mixers which allow mixing of energy, re-energizing, which even allow breather to you and allow breather to the students. So these kind of small things you will have to incorporate in your session. So in addition to preparing for just the syllabus that has to be covered, these kind of small mixers should also be planned, and this will ensure that who all are watching, who all are listening. So in any case, this engagement will be high, and students will be engaged and listening to you, paying attention to you with a sense of curiosity. Okay, when is ma'am or sir going to come up with another fun game, because nobody else is doing that. And as you must have heard in Erin's interview, so she was, instructed not to smile till Christmas. That means not to show any of her personal feelings to the students whenever she was getting into the classroom. But whenever we are talked, or we are asked to remember or recall from memory any of our favorite teachers, we end up talking about our kindergarten teachers, or our teachers who spent some time with us or bonded with us in a small manner. So that means these teachers or these educators walked the extra mile. They not only taught the subject, but they also took an interest in us as a person. So you will always have to, when you want to create more influence, when you want to exert more influence, it will not help in being unhuman, being non-human, not inhuman, being non-human in the classroom. One has to accept that we are humans, that we are motivated by our emotions. So there's one thing called brain, there's another organ called heart, but both these together combine form our mind, which drives us, man. But mind is not a physical matter. There is no organ in our body that is mind, yet mind is such a powerful force within us that drives our decisions, that drives our day-to-day life. So we cannot deny the human aspect or the human element of our lives. So why not encash upon it? Why not leverage it? Why not use it in the classroom also to have more influence over our students, and thereby increasing their engagement with our sessions? Okay. Also, if it is possible, please plan each session as an independent session, or at least covering up, a portion which has clear demarcated boundaries within the syllabus, so that even if you have to repeat something, there is not a string of sessions that you end up repeating. There's just that chock-a-block standalone session You might have to repeat because your students, most of them were absent or most of them did not grasp what you were trying to say. And it allows you also to take a break. You should keep sessions that cover fundamental concepts at the beginning. So something which is heavy, something which is important should come at the beginning of the session. That's because there is a changeover between the speakers when one teacher has stopped engaging the class and the next teacher is beginning to engage. So in any case, the students are looking forward to, is there something new that this new speaker is going to talk to us about? Even if you visit them, share information and teachings with them every day, yet that changeover allows newness, and that newness heightens their attention. So that is why fundamental concepts should be shared towards in the beginning, because you also, it allows you time to develop that concept. Sometimes it might take longer as anticipated by you to develop that topic. So starting it in the beginning allows you that space and time as well. The learning objectives should be clear and distinct for yourself before you design the session. So you should know, what am I seeking to accomplish, or what part of the syllabus am I seeking to accomplish? What is it that I want the students to do, or to be able to do or understand when I deliver this session? So that should be clear to you, and that should help you to design and deliver your sessions. Now, what is the blend or the mix of resources, the textual and the non-textual elements that you can use to develop a session? So it should have a blend of reference or reading material. Usually, I advise that in an online setting, please share the reading material before the class. So you can post information about the session in the WhatsApp group and say that I shall be emailing at such and such time the document to, or the handouts for, or the extra reading material to all the students at such and such time for this session, which we are going to have 2 days later. And you are requested to study all the contents yourself, pick out points that you may not have understood. So this is the first time they are reading about that topic. You engage the students by sending out all the reading material, so immediately they know that, oh, so now my teacher is not going to read out from the textbook or explain what's written in the text in the classroom. So what is she or he going to do? And when you, and then in the same email you say that we are going to perform some experiments, we are going to discuss about what we've read, or we are going to perform an activity based on what we've read in the class. So it becomes imperative for the students to come after having read that, because otherwise in the classroom, when you're just reading out from the resource material, the reading material explaining, they are not engaged. So they've not even read on their own, they have not listened to what you've said, and chances are they'll not be able to speak and write about it also. So by doing this, that I'm not going to read it, you have to read it, and we are going to discuss it, and we are going to perform an activity. You have shifted the onus on them that please read it on your own, and then come for the classroom. So share the reading material, resource material, reference material before the session. Let it include, links to Twitter articles, LinkedIn articles, important relevant blog posts, text from other experts on their websites, other universities, some YouTube videos. The one that I shared with you is a YouTube video that I've downloaded in my laptop, or any other online resource, free resource, any PDF that you can make of some kind of a research paper, or some kind of a writing, or some other chapter in some other book, and from the library you make a PDF of it and attach it. So give them a lot of reading material, and then you invite them to the classroom so that you can have a discussion on it. They might have their queries, I did not understand that, I did not. So they will try to make it cumbersome for you. Students usually, oh, there's so many doubts, everything I could not understand, try to read it, because they did not put their mind to it. So there will be a barrage of queries shot at you. So you park them towards the end. You say it's okay, we will take it up towards the end of the session. And then through your own experience, you can divide the class into groups. If it is an activity, group activity, if it is an individual activity, let them perform it alone, and you tell them, give them the task, and tell them to turn on their video and perform it in front of you while you are also performing it with them. So now what is happening is that activity, that experiment based on that concept is being performed. But there is a challenge in here, challenge in this thing, in this kind of plan, and that is, will everybody, will all the students be able to procure the material, the things required, the objects required to conduct that experiment, to conduct that activity. So if you can think of something simpler which is readily available and can be used for performance of the activity, that will help in elucidation of the concept, please do that. Otherwise, you make the arrangement with yourself, because I am sure you would be allowed to issue sorry, stuff from the school, from the laboratory. You perform the experiment for them, in front of them, and let them see it, and then have a discussion on it in the classroom, and then take up the questions. Let peers answer those questions. Let other students answer the questions of the other students. Then you give your explanation, and then give them the assignment or the homework to be done on that concept. Now, what have I done in the entire thing? I flipped the classroom. Just because in an online setting we will not be able to have laboratory sessions or practical sessions, so the time that is there available to you for theory, please use it up for practicals. Let the students read the theory on their own, because in any case, when you're reading it out or when you're trying to explain it on the in the virtual classroom, not much is getting absorbed. But by performing the activity with them, or performing the activity for them, followed by a discussion, the chances of their imbibing more education or more learning are much higher. So do that. And you might even want to show them an experiment, a video of an experiment. So first you perform it for them, then for further elaboration and elucidation, you share the YouTube video. There's so many videos available, not only on YouTube, on NCRT's website, on AICT's website, on MIT's website, free resources. It's just that you will have to change your methodology a bit, do a little bit of spade work to be able to prepare a session. Share that with them. Share that link in the email so that they can refer to that video experiments video, practicals video again, and then attempt the assignment that you've given them. So engage with students in such a manner, and and this kind of break of monotony in a session is very important, and that you can easily do through the use of audio visual resources, because you are in a virtual setup. So please use this, employ this, and this will give you a lot of success. I've covered all the points that I've talked about, and I've essentially shared with you the essence of, or the concept of, a flipped classroom. You should have audio visual or both type of content to reinforce learning. You should create your own content whenever possible. So when I take sessions on Twitter and LinkedIn, I talk about the teacher education is keeping maintaining their own profile on both these platforms, and you can yourself perform these experiments, record a video, shorter ones, and post them on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This will not only help your students, but it will also help you to create reference material for future students. It will also enhance your image, your influence as an educationist. And when you look at opportunities for further research, for postdoc research, for funding, grant for any kind of a project, for affiliation with a bigger board, bigger council, bigger organization or institution, all this work that has been done by you, which is recorded as evidence and posted online, will be very helpful for you. Because I'm sure otherwise you are performing these activities on a daily basis, but then there is no record of it, though it is assumed to have been done, because there are certain aspects and there are certain criteria of work, that roles and responsibility that an educationist has to fulfill when they're in employment with an organization. But how you do it, are you really good at it, how do you employ all the resources, that those finer nuances are brought out in the videos that you post, not only for your students but also for others with whom you'd like to affiliate. So this is helpful for you as well. Since there are different kind of learners, you can employ on the whiteboard or on the PPT here itself color coding to appeal to different kind of learner personalities. We have multiple learner personalities. So that is something that you can use to make your presentations much more interesting and engaging, and making the students, intrigued and uh, encouraging them to look forward to what you have to share. Also, another very important aspect is making peer learning an important component of your session. So if you feel that flipped classroom is something that you can use for not all the subjects, let's topics within your subjects, let's say there are 12 topics that you have to cover, and out of those there are 5 that can be covered in a flipped classroom setting. Rest all are supremely and intensely theory based, and they cannot have, even despite your best of the efforts, you cannot create an activity or an experiment on it. So flipped classroom will not work. So what you do is you can create groups of students. So they can be 5 groups or 4 groups depending on the strength of your class. You can assign a group leader, sorry, and that group leader can be your extended arms and eyes and ears into the ranks of the students. You can assign this group leader the task of guiding, counseling, imparting peer learning to other people in their group. This group leader can also support you in creating and synergizing and mobilizing the students with him or her in his or her group when practical experiments and activities are being performed in a flipped classroom methodology. So this is how you break down the cluster, be a part of that group of students over WhatsApp so that you keep monitoring and supervising what's happening, and you can create more value out of your sessions and encourage more learning for those students who take up the responsibility of being group leaders. So they're not only leading the students, but they're also working as small nodes of imparting a little bit of education and their own learning, sharing their own learning with the students. So think of something like that. If it does not escalate or increase beyond unwieldy levels your engagement with the students, please do that. Now let me talk about PowerPoint presentations. Very quickly checking the time. So PowerPoint presentations are only for you. These are not for students. These PowerPoint presentations should have minimal text. They should not be distracting the students from you. They are definitely not a replacement of you. And you should put in only small cues on the PowerPoint presentation so that when you look at them, those cues, you are reminded of what you have to share next. So it is not long, unwieldy sentences that are there. And in any case, it's going to be very difficult for you to copy that text, put it up on PowerPoint, format it, and then make another slide. So rather than, if you are going to use text intensively, why not make a handout of it and present it as a Word document or a PDF? Like yesterday I shared a worksheet with you online here, so you can create worksheets also which can be attempted by everybody, and before the session you can ask everybody to have a look at it, to take the worksheets as prints, or at least open it up or read up the worksheet, so that when you share instructions with them during the class, they are already familiar with what it is that they have to take a look at. So even if technology collapses, even if one cannot share their screen, something or the other happens, even if one has to log in from the mobile phone and wherein sharing is difficult, it is okay. The students already know what it is that you're talking about, and they can use that. So it is not only PowerPoint presentations, it is also PDFs and Word documents that you can use. Yesterday I talked about using the whiteboard application within the online setup. You can use that as well. So use it. And they you know the text that must be read by the students can be displayed on the slides. For example, you can even encourage more participation by the students by asking them to read what's written on the screen, but that will not work most of the times, because in any case, as I understand, most of us or most of the students would try to be doing something else rather than just sitting. Multitasking to chali rahi hogi, they would be doing multitasking, so have not much text put up on the screen which students will have to read, rather have activities for them. So let's see how we can have activities for our students. So beginning of the session is very important, and so is the ending. So for that, you should have, beginning activity could be something that warms up or dispels the energy of the previous session. Perhaps it was too heavy, the teacher was in a bad mood, the students had gone rowdy, the session was too boring, and that it has continue to affect the entire morale, motivation, and energy of the students. So you might need to break it up with some fun activity, which is totally unrelated to the work or the study that you're going to talk about. So what will this ensure? This will also ensure that the students turn up on time, log in time, and start paying attention from the beginning, because you're going to do something fun with them. So plan a fun activity. There are many such activities available on free resources on Google. You just have to type open search and you will find what you're looking for. And ending should also be done with an activity which is related to what you have taught, not an activity that breaks monotony, because then they will not retain what you've taught, because in a way you've not tied it in at the end. Your each lesson should follow a pattern so that the students are not caught off guard, until unless you feel that they've started taking it for granted, they log in, they log out at particular times and all that. But if you keep giving those 3 breaks within the session, so that will help them to stay glued. So there's an activity at the beginning where you ask them how it is. I told you about trip reports yesterday. Even Erin Grubel talked about that there is so much beyond the curriculum that comes to the classroom, that whether the child has had breakfast, whether the lights were turned out the night before when they went to sleep, whether dad is up for parole, those kind of things, we do not know what is it that is affecting the child, especially when they are not able to move out of the home, they are not able to change their atmosphere and ethos, their environment. Then what is the all pervading sense or feeling or the quality within the ethos at home that may not support learning? We do not know, but addressing it is important, because without having addressed it, students will not be able to move on. So having a mixer, having a break, interacting with them will help them to open up more. So you should follow a pattern so that the students do not find there's a lot of incongruity, there's a lot of dissonance, there's a lot of instability in your sessions. You should always park their questions and take them up towards the end, so that they do not disrupt the session, they do not slow it down, they are not doing it on purpose. But that doesn't mean rattling on like a train that has to reach its destination, super fast train that has to reach its destination on time. No, that will not make any sense either. So, but taking up their queries, being sensitive to it, that yes, I understand, this is a genuine question, let's take it up towards the end. Perhaps I'll address it while I'm completing the session. Perhaps you'll not have it at all by the end of the session, because I would have already covered. Perhaps you're thinking ahead of the syllabus like others, so other learners might not have caught up with it. So give me time. Towards the end of the session, I've allocated 5-7 minutes, I'll take up your query. You should include time for instructions for performing an experiment or reading a particular test or participating in a game or activity within the session plan. You should have that. So you should not be speaking or you should not be addressing or speaking a monologue for most of the times. It also helps to write down instructions, because when there's not a written word to support what one is saying, and also there is loss of non-verbal communication, then communication tends to become unwieldy and difficult to understand. So to make it easier for your students, you can have instructions written down. You can perhaps share it in the chat. You can copy and paste it from a document and put it in the chat box of the session, or you can put it in the WhatsApp group and you can tell them. But I would advise you not to allow students or encourage students to access the phone during the session. That's because they might just go to WhatsApp, open WhatsApp, and while they are checking out the message that you posted, they'll check out what conversations are going on here and there in the other WhatsApp groups and other WhatsApp entities that they interact with, and this will lead to distraction. So try to restrict to this platform only, the Google Meet or whatever platform you use, Microsoft Teams for sessions and all. And similar activities which have the same content, the same nature, should not be placed together, because then the activities also become boring. ये तो एक जैसी होती है, same होती है. How do you engage with your students? Your students should be in your loop throughout the session. So you should not continue to rattle on even without knowing or being aware whether they are engaging with you or not, whether they are talking to you or not, or how is the session going on. So that those breaks and that interaction allows you to know whether they are with you or not. Like I said, share information with them before the class, because this piques the curiosity of some of the students. Assigning a goal to the concept that you're going to study, that goal is how much score they can take out of this, what is the value of getting of the information being shared and getting placed with a with a company. How will they be able to better perform their practical, score higher, so on and so forth. Give a goal, a tangible goal, when you share information about your session, so that they are encouraged to turn up for the session. Post task, further reading material, experiments to be done at home, and other such activities after the class. So, whatever immediate work has to be done after the class, so that should also be planned while you are designing the session. And immediately after the session, you send an email of it to the students. So, yesterday's session and today's session, all the reading material, everything will be emailed to Amandeep ma'am immediately after I get out of this session for you all to use. I will not delay it, because then it is something, it is work that is unattended, it is an incomplete session, and a slight delay can expand into a broad major delay as well. Okay. And during the session, you should encourage discussions and open questions. You should ask open questions rather than "Samajh aa gaya ki nahi aaya? I think you have got it. Have you got it or not?" No, those are yes and no questions. You should close-ended questions. You should ask, "What aspect of what I've taught till now is clear? How many of you can tell me what is this? Okay. What about the others?" So when you see the others are not, so ABC, what do you think? Have you understood? How much have you understood? So those are the questions that you should be asking. We should not be refraining or hesitating to engage with our students. Most of the times I've found that teachers hesitate to engage because, like Erin was also saying, it is almost akin to opening a Pandora's box, that you never know what's going to come out of it. Whether the student is going to lash out at you, whether the student is going to give you a stray comment that will border on sarcasm and mockery. You do not know how to go about it. So that is why we desist from engaging with the students, but that's not a good course of action or a good methodology to adopt. Let's look at the do's and don'ts that one should do in a session, and then we will I think close the session, and I'll open up for a little bit of discussion with all of you. So you should create a plan that fits into your overall goal for the batch. You should, that when you have a lesson plan, you should have that, okay, first this, second this, third this, fourth this, and finally by the end of the semester we've reached here. So there should be continuity, there should be flow, and there should be connection between everything that you are delivering to to students during a session. You have to keep the lesson plan simple to execute. Don't make it very difficult for yourself. The simple it is. So Einstein has said that if you cannot explain a concept to an 8-year-old, that means you've not understood it well. You have not internalized it well. So the simpler it is, the better it is. Simplicity is elegance. So this is what one should be striving for when developing lesson plans. Your lesson plan should always be shorter than, by 10-15 minutes, if it is a 45-minute session, than the overall time or the actual time for the session. That has to be done. You have to encourage participation, but not at the cost of digression from the topic. So in that way, you will have to have a good command over language. You'll have to have a good command over your emotions and not get perturbed or irritated with what they are saying or it's digressing. Be very polite but assertive in checking any digression when you open up the session for discussion. Check it then and there, but not address it or just say, "Oh, all right, ABC, you speak," and without addressing what PQR is saying. Tell PQR that, okay, you've shared this point but does not relate to the topic, so I'm not going to discuss it. I'll rather invite ABC to talk about something. So this is how you remain in control and assert your dominance or influence in the session. Your sessions should be different from your other sessions and also sessions of the other teachers, because that is how your students will be encouraged to come to your sessions. It entails a little bit more of work, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy the process more. And it should have a unique stamp, that if you attend Dr. Aruna's session. Oh, they are so amazing, and it is always such a joy to attend her online sessions and also her in-person sessions. So this is how students should be able to talk about you and your sessions. So in Harvard University, there is a course on happiness. This was delivered as a complimentary course by a young professor of psychology in Harvard University. He started it initially to combat growing instances of suicide, depression, anxiety amongst the students in the campus, Harvard University's campus. But gradually, over the period of years, these complimentary sessions or pro bono sessions became so popular that now there's a waiting of 2 years or more to get enrolled into that course of happiness at Harvard University's campus. So, can you imagine that there's so much of innovation, there's so much of um, creativity that we can bring to everyday mundane activities that the tables can turn in such a manner. And you should always have a plan B for your session. So if technology fails, if something fails, what is it that you're going to resort to? How you're going to accomplish the goal for the session. So have that in mind always. And of course, do not try to suffocate or do not try to binge eat or binge share with your students all that you would want to, just because you're in a flow. So you continue to say and state everything, but that does not mean just because you're enjoying speaking about it, you've internalized that subject so thoroughly, you're so one in spirit, so in sync with what you're teaching, does not mean that your learners are also learning at that pace. So these are the things that you should watch out for. These are some of my links where I'm present, and you can perhaps take a look there and connect with me there. So this was all that I wanted to share about designing a lesson plan for an online session. What I want you to do now is I ask you or invite you, if there are any questions or queries that you might have for me, please go ahead and ask me. All right, so I'll give you.
No questions, sir, from my side.
Thank you. So now what I'll do is I will give an opportunity to Dr. Garg, to Dr. Saini here, and Dr. Aruna has dropped out of the session. I'll give you 5 minutes to ponder over, and please share with us an episode when you were teaching online or in person where you felt that your service, your responsibility as an educator was highly appreciated, or it has been a high point of your career till now. So please take 5 minutes to ponder over your thoughts and then share it with us. Then we'll break down that incident as to what worked there and how we can replicate it in our present scenario. So it is 12:30 in my laptop's clock right now. At 12:35, I will request you all to start sharing this experience one by one with us. So I'm here, but I'm on mute. I hope the activity is clear to everybody, to Dr. Garg and to Dr. Seni.
Ma'am, can you repeat? Actually, there is some problem in my system.
Yes, Dr. Seni. So I was saying that you can perhaps think over and ponder over a situation or instance from your professional life which you regard as the high point or a highlight of your classroom session. It should not be about your career, but about the session or a class that you engaged with students that was so exceptionally brilliant that you regard it or you consider it as a high point of your teaching responsibilities. Once you can think of that instance, please be prepared to share it with us so that we can break it down and think of or come up with aspects of what worked and why it worked in that case and replicate it for all times to come. Is it clear now, Dr. Seni? Have I made it a little easier?
Yes, ma'am, sure. I'm going to think on that. If it is possible for me, then definitely I'll give you the answer.
Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
we'll wait till 35 or 12:36. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Garg. No, we do not have to leave. I was taking this time for an activity. So the activity is, please recall an incident from your profession wherein you delivered such a session to the students that you consider it a high point of your career, and please share it with us. Then we will try to understand what worked in that session and why did it work, and perhaps try to replicate it in our other sessions for future use. So please do not leave yet.
Ma'am, can you please explain
Yes.
the activity
So,
in some
Dr.
simpler
Garg,
words?
there must have been a session or a classroom or a class discussion that you must have engaged with your students, after which you felt extremely satisfied. You felt that it was an amazing engagement. Not only did I deliver well, but also my students received the education very well. So please try to recall that session, share the details of that session, that classroom discussion, or that class with us. And we will then try to understand what were the aspects of that session that worked so well. And we will try to, imbibe those things or apply those things for ourselves also. And also help you in understanding those aspects which worked so that you may use them and employ them for future. Have I explained it in easier terminology now, Dr. Garg?
Yes, ma'am, definitely, ma'am. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, Dr. Sani and Dr. Garg, are either of you ready to share, please?
Uh, Ma'am, what I can remind, it's a, you know, it's a recent one that I'm going to share with you. Actually,
Amazing.
thank you, ma'am. Actually, this is the batch 2022. It's my first semester, I can remember.
Hmm.
The class is BSc CSM, Bachelor
Hmm.
of Computer Science and Statistics. And
Okay.
the background of the students are only +2. They don't have the idea
Hmm.
about the statistics. And my subject I am going to teach for the previous semester. Like it has been passed now,
Hmm.
but that was the statistics.
Hmm.
I have to introduce that topic. But
Hmm.
one lecture, two lecture, I can say three lecture approximately have been passed, and students are not responding to my lectures.
Oh.
Even they are just sitting like dead bodies in my class, and it's a very surprising thing for me. And then
Hmm.
I started thinking on that what activity I can share with the students that they can take some interest, they can show some interest in my class. So
Hmm.
for that I just show them the basic videos, YouTube
Hmm.
videos, very basic one. Even I can say the 10th standard student have done that topic in their own curriculum.
Hmm.
So then I relate some of the concepts of the probability
Hmm.
with their semester curriculum and the syllabus. Then I told them, then you are going to do some data analysis in your graduation. But
Hmm.
to do that data analysis, you need to have the basic concepts of probability and the stats.
Hmm.
And after that I can see the students have scored. Even right now they are appearing, they are going to appear for their final examination, but I have seen the results of their mid semester test, and they have achieved, they have scored very good marks. Like out of 40 they are scoring above 30 marks, all these students, and that was the surprising thing for me. uh, and after that I think we must relate some of the videos, some of the audio visual aids in our teaching. That
Hmm.
is must. That is the must thing teacher have to do. This is
Great.
what I can share.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sani. Amazing. So this was an online session.
Yeah, no, ma'am, it's an offline session because,
So it
but
was
in
in
offline,
person session.
yeah, it's in offline session. I have to share the videos. This is what I'm saying. Otherwise,
Amazing.
I'm just using the marker and whiteboard.
Mm.
But
So
but
how
I
did
think
you
I
share
have.
that video? How did you
Hmm?
share that video?
Yes, ma'am. Pardon.
How did you share the video if it was an
Ma'am, by using the
in-person?
projector and laptop. I have to specially
Awesome.
carry that laptop for that session.
So see, you made that extra effort, but it was able to make such an impression on your students now that they all are scoring so high.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure
Now
you.
all the students are, connected with me. I'm also their mentor. Means,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Hmm. So I'm sure you must be deriving a lot of satisfaction through this kind of, first the
Actually, ma'am,
delivery of the
maths is a subject. Actually, math is a subject where if students are not responding, you can't teach. You can't stand even in your class. So this is must. I think
yes.
being a teacher, I have to stay connected with my students.
Yes, so see, who would have thought that maths, which is otherwise thought of as a non-creative subject? We would think of
Definitely.
languages as a creative subject,
Hmm.
or subjects that allow more creativity for incorporation. But you have so rightly pointed out that maths is a subject which is practice-based. The learning is practice-based. So if you cannot initiate the student on that journey, it will not
Hmm.
happen. The learning will not happen. And you employed
Definitely,
such.
ma'am, because it's only the start that matters. After that, students find their way
Yes,
to
they
solve all
they
the
are in
problems.
that motion. Yes, great. So
Definitely.
that yes, so that was such a creative, innovative way, and we should not be waiting only for an online session to be able to use the resources. So kudos to you that you thought of it. You arranged the
Thank you.
projector from the institute. You carried your own laptop so that you could share the basic videos with them, and that has really helped you. And we all can see that it has really helped the students. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. And I want to add something for you. And your session was very informative and really appreciating you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sen. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am. Thank you.
And I hope, we all continue to learn what you've shared. We can match up your inspiration and motivation for reaching out and maintaining and forging a bond with the students. And I'm sure that since this is something that you can recall and share with us, so this is a practice that you're going to continue to perform and practice in your responsibility and handling of batches even later, not only the present batch. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Saini. Yes, Dr. Garg, would you like to share something? Dr. Saini has shared such an inspirational story. Is there something that you would also like to share, please?
Yes, ma'am. I can say that I started my teaching career from February 2006, and my stream is very creative and artistic field. It is commercial art, which involves photography, drawing and painting, drawing and illustration, actually, packaging, calligraphy, and lots of things. So, from first day, I can see that students were very good with me in practical subject. But the theory class which I took, the first theory class which I took, was not that good because as I worked at many places, so it is easy to teach practical to a student, but to turn it into a theory class is not that easy. We have to express in a different manner and a systematic manner. In we have to express in points and very different thing. A theory class is very different thing from a practical class. Then I focused on it, and since then, I can say that students are usually happy with me, and after seeing their faces, after a conversation with them, even without the use of any aid. We are in the government sector, so we usually have very basic things, but
Yes.
the satisfaction can be achieved with students with a simple conversation.
Yes.
By a conversation we can give student, and when students finds things which they already do not know, they find a new direction. Yes, this is a new direction, it could be possible, this is a better way. Then they definitely express their satisfaction silently, and that their silent satisfaction is very pleasing. That's all I have to say, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Great. So you are saying, Dr. Garg, for teaching theory for an otherwise very practical subject, which is a creative art that you're saying, photography and illustration, you have encouraged discussions, classroom discussions to share theory. And through those discussions, through those conversations, you share information about unknown facts and aspects and concepts of the subject with the students, and you can make out through their non-verbal communication that they have felt satisfaction, that they have registered, that they have learned something new in this theory class as well. Isn't that so, Dr. Garg?
Yes, ma'am, precisely, ma'am.
Great. So this is validating what we talked about yesterday, the two-way street of communication and how effective classroom communication is achieved when we encourage discussion and participation by our students. So thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Garg. As inspiring as Dr. Saini's story has been, yours has been also full of wisdom and learning, and it has actually made things easier for ma'am as well, and also for me, whenever we have to share something which is dense with theory and otherwise the subject is practical, we know that we can open a discussion on it, and through conversation we can share new information. I thank all of you. I think that was all I wanted to share in today's session. And thank you so much, Amandeep ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Garg, and thank you, Dr. Saini, for being so participative and interactive throughout the session.